What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to talk about a topic that has been on my mind a little bit going forward with the Call of Duty franchise, and this is what's going to happen with crossplay. Up until now with Call of Duty, only PlayStation players have had the ability to disable crossplay in-game, and while apparently Xbox players can do this from the console settings, there is a method of disabling crossplay from there. From what I've heard, this often just doesn't work out super well while playing Call of Duty, so I'm mainly just focusing on the actual in-game setting of being able to toggle crossplay on or off. Now, the fact that only PlayStation users have had the option to disable crossplay all this time appears to be almost definitely due to the fact that Call of Duty has had the PlayStation deal for quite some time now. However, Modern Warfare 3 is the last Call of Duty game where that PlayStation deal applies, and now Microsoft owns Activision and therefore Call of Duty, and that does leave things up in the air as far as how they're going to handle crossplay options in COD 2024 and beyond. And before we get into some possible scenarios with crossplay going forward with Call of Duty, as well as some of my hopes for crossplay going forward, let's just first talk about the pros and cons of having cross-platform play. And on the pro side, of course, this means there's going to be a much larger player pool at any given time that you're able to connect to when all of the platforms are playing in the same player pool, which in theory at least means you should see faster matchmaking and better connections on average, because the more people you can connect to, the more likely you're going to be able to find people on your best data center in a reasonably fast period of time. Now, in practice in Call of Duty, it really doesn't seem like we're getting the best connection possible, and also people have done tests with matchmaking times, and it is significantly faster getting into matches in older Call of Duty games before crossplay than newer ones, at least on console. So I'm not too sure these pros really hold up. But at the very least, with this larger player pool, if there's a game mode that's not very popular but still available in the game, at least in those specific cases, you should be able to get into games much faster, especially on the lesser played platforms. Additionally, the second big pro with this is you can play with friends on any platform. So as an example, if you have a friend that plays on Xbox but you play on PlayStation or PC, you don't have to go out and buy an Xbox just to play Call of Duty with that friend. With cross-platform play, you can just get into the same lobby with them and play with them on a different platform. And for me at least, this is by far the best part of crossplay. In saying that though, it's not all positives when it comes to crossplay. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother making this video. Let's talk about some of the cons and why you might want the option to disable crossplay. The first one's fairly obvious. There are performance differences between platforms, especially when you're comparing consoles to PC. So just as a few examples here, on PC, we have the potential to get better frame rates at higher resolutions. You can also do various things to reduce input lag that you can't do on console, like overclocking a controller, for instance. That can give you a much more responsive feel. You also have far more control over your graphics settings on PC that you don't have available on console. And another thing is it's really easy to set up something like sound EQ on PC, which can give you a massive in-game advantage compared to console players that are going to have a much more difficult time setting something like that up. Like, it's still technically possible on a console, but you're likely going to have to buy some hardware and run your audio inputs through that hardware to make that happen, whereas on PC, you don't have to really buy anything special, you just set it up. And that's just the first con when it comes to crossplay. Another big con is, once again, just talking about consoles versus PC rather than comparing the consoles to each other. And this is the simple fact that PC cheating is significantly worse and harder to deal with than console cheating. And I do want to be super clear because sometimes people take this the wrong way. I'm not saying all PC players are cheaters or anything like that. I'm just saying the cheats that are available on PC, like aimbots and wall hacks, those are going to have a significantly larger impact on the game. They can make the game completely unplayable for everybody that's in the lobby, whereas the cheats that are available on console, like using a Cronus or a Zim or something like that, that's just going to be affecting your inputs. And while it's still cheating and I'm still firmly against using those items, I'm not really going to have that much of a difficult time challenging a Cronus user compared to somebody with aimbots and wall hacks. In fact, more often than not, you can't even really tell if somebody's using a Cronus or if they just have good recoil control, for instance. Typically, the only way something like that is going to be obvious is if they're using some kind of a jitter mod to achieve a ridiculously high and consistent fire rate with semi-autos. And that right there is the number one reason that I tend to play on my console with crossplay disabled rather than playing on my PC, which is excellent, by the way. My PC can handle the game just fine, but I just really love the peace of mind of hopping on my PS5, turning off crossplay, and knowing that I'm not going to run into aimbots and wall hacks. At most, I'm going to run into like a Cronus user. And now that we have my pros and cons established for that, let's get into a few scenarios that I could see potentially happening going forward with Call of Duty now that PlayStation no longer has that deal, and now that it's really unlikely that PlayStation will be the only platform that has the ability to disable crossplay. Now, the first scenario I'm really worried about, and I really hope they don't go this route, But who knows? Maybe they're just going to eliminate all crossplay options for everyone, and all platforms are going to be forced into playing with crossplay, so there's no way console players can then avoid PC players. Everybody's in the same matchmaking pool. For me, I think this would really suck just because we can no longer avoid those PC players and have that peace of mind that we can currently have, at least on PlayStation. The next scenario is maybe they'll just give crossplay to everyone. So Xbox can turn off crossplay and only play with Xbox players. PlayStation can do the same and only play with PlayStation players. Or PC can turn off crossplay and just play against PC players. Now this one I'd be totally fine with. It would give players full control over their crossplay experience regardless of which platform they're on. I think it creates a very fair situation, but it may end up leading to splitting up portions of the player base. I don't think it would have a significant impact as long as the default option has crossplay enabled and you have to actually go out of your way to turn crossplay off. But that scenario sounds pretty good to me. However, in my eyes, there is an ideal scenario that's just a little bit better than that one. And this would be the ability for console players to enable console-only crossplay, so then you'll just be in lobbies with PlayStation and Xbox players all together, but you'll never run into a PC player with that option enabled. And then, of course, for the PC players, it would only be fair to also give them the option to turn off crossplay so they can limit it so they only play against PC players. I don't know why they would do that since they have clear advantages over console players, but I do think, just to be fair, everybody should have those options available. And I really like this idea personally because you might have noticed with my list of cons for crossplay, all of those cons were related to the fact that console players are playing in the same lobby as PC players. And there really isn't an issue, in my eyes at least, with console players from different platforms playing against each other. Their performance and their ability to tweak things is going to be roughly the same between new-gen consoles. Like, I don't think an Xbox Series X player is going to be gaining any significant advantage over a PS5 player performance-wise, or vice versa. So that's a scenario I'm hoping for the most. Console-only crossplay and then PC-only crossplay, with, of course, the default option just being crossplay enabled in order to maximize the total number of players that can be in the general matchmaking pool at any given time. And then if you want to opt out of that, give us the option to do so. And that's pretty much it as far as what I wanted to discuss when it comes to cross-platform play, but I figured I'd also just tag on a quick mention about cross-input play. What about the ability to play with controller only or mouse and keyboard only? This is one of those things where I definitely wouldn't be opposed to this at all, but at the same time, I'm playing with the input that the vast majority of Call of Duty players are playing on, controller, and therefore it wouldn't really have any negative impacts on me, whereas on the other side, for mouse and keyboard players, I'm not sure if the player base is high enough on mouse and keyboard to properly support strict input matchmaking across all modes. They may struggle to find games fast and with a reasonable connection, especially in the lesser played modes, and that was one of the big issues we ran into with the PC side of things before crossplay came into the picture. So as a result of this, it just seems extremely unlikely that they're going to be going that route with cross-input play. I think they're just going to stick to what they've been doing here, which is trying to match inputs with each other whenever possible. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. It's just a topic that's been on my mind a little bit lately, and I am very curious to see how they end up handling crossplay going forward after Modern Warfare 3. Now, of course, this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What would your ideal situation be when it comes to crossplay going forward in Call of Duty? Do you think crossplay should just always be enabled for everybody? Do you think everybody should have options to turn off crossplay? What's your ideal situation? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.